We are recording. All right. So, welcome to a segment that I would like to call Reviewing the Review. Or it could be Critiquing the Critique. I don't know yet. But it is going to be where I take something Mortal Kombat related and perhaps critique it a little bit. A review where it's really not all that accurate to the truth. And so we're just going to leave it there. And I'm going to go ahead and start this up. And this video is titled Mortal Kombat 3, How an Arcade Dud Transformed Console Gaming. And this is a review of Mortal Kombat 3 on the PlayStation. And if you guys remember, Mortal Kombat 3 was released within like the first month of the PlayStation's release, so it wasn't a launch title, but it was pretty close. And I ended up actually renting a PlayStation from Blockbuster along with MK3 and I think NCAA Game Day or something like that. It was a college football game. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the review. Now, first, I want to say that this whole segment is lighthearted. It's not a shot at Retro Pals, who is the author of this video. I don't know him. I've never really chatted with him. But I remember watching this review a while ago, a long time ago, and with MK3 turning 30 years old, I thought it would be good to go back through and see what some takes were on it over time. So here we go. So I'm going to, pause, play and pause, listen, play, pause, listen, etc., etc. Typical reaction, review to review, whatever. So, all right, here we go. Crowning achievement.
While Mortal Kombat 2 was mostly an iterative upgrade over the original Mortal Kombat, MK3 makes several major changes to its core gameplay.
Okay. Several changes. I want you guys to keep that in mind, okay? Several changes to its core gameplay.
There's now a run button, which lets you charge up to your opponent from across the screen.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat 3 also introduces a combo system, which takes inspiration from Rare's 1994 arcade fighter Killer Instinct.
Okay. So, and oddly enough, that was a midway game as well, right? Okay, so far, so good. So far, so good.
Each character has a set of predefined combos that you can chain together by tapping a specific sequence of buttons after a successful hit. Fighting game fans refer to this as a dial combo system, which from what I can tell is generally frowned upon due to its impact on gameplay balance.
Dial combos are not frowned upon due to gameplay balance. They're not frowned upon at all. I seem to remember people really enjoying Killer Instinct 2, and MK3, and so on and so forth. And it doesn't really disrupt the competitive balance. A big difference between MK2 and MK3 was that MK2 didn't have damage protection. MK3 did. And that was huge because without damage protection, every character in the game would have like 130, 140% combos. But we'll go on.
Basically, it makes combos easier to pull off, but it favors memorization over skill.
No, because dial combos do not, I don't think they favor memorization over skill. Yes, you have to have them memorized, but it doesn't favor it over skill because you still have to know how to make them land.
Mortal Kombat 3 also shakes up its playable cast, as 7 of its 15 characters are new to the series.
Right.
Many returning fighters get new costumes, and Kano and Sonya from Mortal Kombat 1 make a comeback after skipping out on Mortal Kombat 2. And of course, with new characters comes new finishing moves.
Oh, yeah.
By now, we're long past the primitive days of MK1, where there was only one fatality per character.
Right.
All characters in Mortal Kombat 3 have at least 5 finishing moves each.
5. In MK2, they had 4. And you know what they added? He's going to tell us.
That includes 2 fatalities, a babality, and a friendship again.
Friendship again.
New to Mortal Kombat 3 is the animality,
Oh, there
which,
we go, the
yeah, it's
animality.
pretty much what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Bottom line, Mortal Kombat 3 was at that point the biggest game in the series in terms of content, and its home release.
They added the animality. That's the big. I mean, obviously, right? Because it's the newest game. You gotta add character. This was the time where like there wasn't enough space on available chips at the time to like bus in characters by the truckload like they do in the newer games. So anyway,
Release was hyped like no game had been hyped before. Like with the first two Mortal Kombats, Midway licensed the rights to the home versions of Mortal Kombat 3 to Acclaim, who contracted Sculptured Software to produce ports for the Super NES and Sega Genesis. Previous Mortal Kombat home ports were generally solid, and they maintained the basic look and feel of Mortal Kombats 1 and 2. On the other hand, they also reflected the limitations of 16-bit console hardware.
he's right.
Characters were smaller, were less detailed, and had fewer frames of animation than
Keep that in mind. Smaller, less detailed. Okay.
they had in arcades. Music and voice sample quality also suffered. That didn't make these ports any less successful, but by now, players knew what to expect from the cartridge versions of MK3.
They did know.
Sony, meanwhile, knew that it wanted a PlayStation version of the latest Mortal Kombat game within a month of its console's launch, but it didn't want a farmed-out port from Sculptured Software.
That makes sense.
Using its marketing muscle, and probably many, many millions of dollars, Sony convinced Midway to develop a custom PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 3 using in-house assets and an internal development staff. Sony also assigned a first-party production team to the project to help Midway meet its deadline while providing quality assurance. There was just one problem here. Midway was exclusively a developer and manufacturer of arcade games.
That's true.
It didn't have a home console division.
That's true, they did not.
Luckily for Midway, its parent company, WMS Industries, had recently acquired TradeWest, a Texas-based publisher that had found some initial success by publishing NES games like Double Dragon and Battletoads.
Those were good games. All right, Battletoads was pretty awful on the Nintendo, though. There was an Angry Video Game Nerd video on that. I think the video is actually better than the game. Anyway, I think we're to here now.
So, this is a home run, right? The PlayStation version of MK3 is a better than perfect port to America, and by whatever measures were taken, the custom-built PlayStation version of MK3 was a sales success and a critical hit. The October 1995 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly gave the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 3 its Game of the Month award, beating out contenders like Kileak and Total Eclipse Turbo.
Total Eclipse Turbo and Kileak. I mean, guys, Mortal Kombat beat Total Eclipse Turbo and Kileak, but it was an arcade dud. That doesn't make any sense. It's an arcade dud, but it is like God's gift to the PlayStation. Okay.
Turbo. EGM's review was typical of the critical response to the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 3. In terms of its core mechanics, the port was widely praised as arcade
Shang what? What did they do to the morphing abilities of Shang Tsung? The slowdown during transformation into other characters irritates me. On another note, the graphics are clean and crisp. I thought I was playing the arcade version. You're lying. You popped the CD in there and you played on the PlayStation. Darn near a perfect translation. Of course, with the morphing exception. Moan and groan. I think just groan, because moaning is... Anyway, the control is tight, and the game itself has enough secret stuff to play. Okay.
Perfect, with reviewers only noting some minor differences in combo knockback and the timing for aerial juggles.
And that's because you're playing at 60 frames instead of 54, and some other small differences that you get when you have things like different character sprite sizes. Okay.
Otherwise, all content from the arcade version, including backgrounds, modes, the characters, and all of their finishing moves, had hit the PlayStation fully intact.
Now, something that you need to know. Not only did this all hit the PlayStation well intact, good point, there's extra content, right? Kung Lao's bio is in the PlayStation version. It's not in the arcade version. It skips over Kung Lao. It goes from Cyrax to Cabal on the bio screens. But anyway.
It's not all good news, of course.
Nope.
Mortal Kombat 3's digitized characters each have a ton of frames of animation that need to be loaded into the PlayStation's memory before each match. Now, this
Oh, dude, get a load of Sub-Zero. Looks like miniature John Turk with an oversized melon.
This is no problem for when the game only needs to load enough animation for 2 characters, but this is a big problem if you play as the shapeshifter Shang Tsung. Luckily, his transformations are disabled by default, so they...
Hold on a second. Luckily, his transformations are disabled by default. So basically, you've turned him into Shang Suck, right? He's already not that great of a character, but now he can't do what he does best, which is morph into top-tier characters.
They won't break up the match if you're fighting the computer. Still, it's an obvious limitation of the hardware, and one that wasn't an issue on cartridge-based media.
He's right.
Otherwise, the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 3 is actually an upgrade compared to the original arcade release.
The PlayStation version... Okay, we just talked about Shang Tsung being neutered. And now it's actually... Hold on, wait for it.
You can access a 15th character, Smoke.
Smoke! Oh, guys, Smoke! It's better!
With a secret code, and the PlayStation port's audio was mixed in stereo, whereas the original arcade version was mono only.
Hold on. Hold that thought, okay? This game is better than Arcade Perfect because it has Smoke and it has stereo audio. I don't know about you guys. Let me pull this up real quick. Yeah, so in 1995, it was something like this. It wasn't that bad. It was made in like the 90s. But this is what I played on. And I had one speaker. Okay? One speaker. And but hey, stereo audio, am I right? Am I right? Let's go on.
To use an outdated but period-appropriate comparison, the difference between the cartridge ports of MK3 and the PlayStation version was like going from VHS to Laserdisc.
Dude, the laser discs ended up, they were overpriced, and they ended up in schools.
By now, the message was clear. In terms of arcade ports, the PlayStation can deliver a premium experience.
Premium. Better than perfect. He hadn't said a thing about load times. Anyway. Oh, wait, I think we're on to the next one. Yep. Okay,
so
this is where it gets
good.
This
is a home run, right? The PlayStation version of MK3 is a better-than-perfect port of one of the most popular...
Hang on.
So, this is a home run,
again.
right? The PlayStation version of MK3 is a better-than-perfect port of one of the most...
Better than perfect! Stereo audio! So it comes through your one speaker on your 13-inch CRT. It's bad!
Popular contemporary arcade games of 1995. And yet this was arguably the beginning of the end for the Mortal Kombat series as we knew it.
MK3 was the beginning of the end. Now, it is worth noting that arcades had been out since, arcade games, like arcades were like, since the early 80s. So as technology moves on, it makes sense that we're like 15, 17 years along into arcades at this point. Anyway.
Why is that? Well, there's a few reasons. One of the first things you might notice is that in terms of art direction, MK3 is much blander than its predecessors.
I take exception to this.
Whereas previous games had you fight in ancient temples and haunted forests and stuff,
yeah,
Mortal
right.
Kombat 3 makes you fight in a bank and a subway.
Well, hold up. The subway is amazing, okay? I don't care what... the art style is different. Not bland. It is different. The subway is pretty nice, okay? Let's be real.
The overhauled cast also disappointed many players. If you played as Johnny Cage, Scorpion, or Raiden in MK1 and 2, it's time to learn a new character because those guys were completely dropped from Mortal Kombat 3's roster.
That happens.
Johnny Cage actor Daniel Pesina famously left the series following a lawsuit over his likeness appearing in the home versions of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2.
Sorry, he had gameplay going on in the background. My bad.
Allegedly without his approval. Other Mortal Kombat cast members also severed ties with Midway following similar disagreements over royalties, leaving Midway to
This is not related to the game itself.
fill the gaps in MK3's roster with lookalikes and newcomers.
Lookalikes? I don't see anybody that looks like Baraka. Well, okay, Cabal's pretty ugly, and he's played by Richard DeVizio. I'm not saying Richard DeVizio is ugly. Drac, did you hear me? I didn't say that.
And these guys don't have the same on-screen charisma, I guess you could say.
Are you kidding me?
Take old Curtis Stryker here. So you can play as mutants, cyborgs, and a traffic cop.
Alright, hold up.
This guy's basically the Poochie of the Mortal Kombat series.
Look, guys, it's a Mugen screen. No, he is not. Okay, first off, he's a SWAT. He's a SWAT cop, and I mean, he's not that. He's a decent character. His outfit leaves a bit to be desired, but he's not a traffic cop. Come on, guys. All right. Anyway.
In another questionable move, Midway decided that ninjas were out and robots were in.
It's the 90s. It's the mid-90s. Okay, we had Windows 95. All right, Windows 95. Okay, robots are cool.
And sure, while Cyrax plays somewhat like Scorpion, watching your opponent flop around...
I'm not gonna lie to you. I used Cyrax when the first time I played Mortal Kombat 3 in the arcade because I thought his net made him feel kind of like Scorpion. I'm not gonna lie.
But a net doesn't have the same kind of impact as stabbing them in the neck with a harpoon and dragging them across the screen. At least Sub-Zero plays like his old self, even if his new costume is... dude, put a shirt on.
Buddy, John Turk is 60 plus years old now. And I bet he would put retro pals to shame today. And he put me to shame too. All right, I'm not going to lie. But John Turk is absolutely buff. Did we tell Jax to put his shirt on? Yeah? Did we?
And then there's the fatalities. Well,
this series never took itself that seriously, especially starting in MK2.
While it's true that there's more finishing moves than ever, many of them are very silly looking.
Yeah.
This continues a trend that started in Mortal Kombat 2 with babalities and friendships, but the animalities are just, well...
Yeah, he's right.
Okay, no, that one's actually great.
The only thing that's really good about the animalities, a lot of the times, look at Kung Lao's arm over here. Like, it's just hanging on for dear life. Whoever chopped up the sprites to make the cut sprites is, they either got fired or promoted. I don't know.
Great. It's the gunfire that gets me. I'm sorry. In another blow to Mortal Kombat's competitive scene circa 1995, Mortal Kombat 3 shipped with some major balance issues.
Yes, they did.
If you're playing the game at a high level, this limits your choices to top-tier characters like Cabal, Sub-Zero, Cyrax, and later Smoke once he was...
What? Cyrax? Oh my gosh! Where's Twin Paradox? Where's NWO? Summoning? Roller Chris? Where's all my Cyrax guys? Go dominate in MK3. Cyrax was top tier. No, he wasn't. He sucked. Slightly less than in UMK3.
Was unlocked through a code that you can enter after the game over screen.
Smoke wasn't even that good. Like, he's mid-tier. He's got the spear, but it's slower. He's got a CPU exploit, but that's not the competitive scene.
In later revisions. Speaking of unlocks, a bunch of optional features are unlockable via codes you input on MK3's character select screen, which is pretty unusual for an arcade game.
Not by the 90s. I mean, maybe the early to mid-90s, but like, NFL Blitz had that, I think, didn't they? And other games had input codes you could do too.
For the most part, these codes change things like damage output.
Did this guy ever play this game? Like, none of them changed damage output. You could start with quarter power, you could start with half power, but as far as public releases of the arcades, there was no damage output change. I started to wonder how much this guy actually played this game.
But a few of them unlock fights against hidden characters, and one lets you play a
Shout out to K-Noob.
weirdly difficult Galaga-style minigame.
That game sucked. It was tough.
This combination lock is something revolutionary in our industry.
These codes were released across every possible media channel as part of a marketing blitz that was recognized as the largest promotional campaign for a fighting video game in the 2011 Guinness World Records Gamers Edition.
How will the game be advertised? With the most aggressive campaign our industry has ever seen.
The most impressive campaign our industry has ever seen. Although they did go into pinball games with it too, which I thought was pretty awesome.
All major player and trade publications will be bombarded with ads like this.
Back in 1994 and 95, you'd see MK3 codes printed in magazines, flashed on the screen during TV commercials, or even while you were playing Bally Midway pinball tables. Yep. Mortal Monday was a defining moment for the games industry, but Mortal Kombat 3's ad campaign was inescapable and kind of obnoxious.
What was obnoxious? They're advertising an extremely popular video game, selling tons of merchandise, eating your quarters. What's obnoxious about that? Every kid, not even kids, there were adults that loved this stuff, ate it up, and we sure do now. Nostalgia's a heck of a drug, yo.
It's an unending supply of merchandise and Mortal Kombat awareness.
In the long run, this only served to magnify MK3's shortcomings.
Magnify its shortcomings? The game was as popular, if not more so, than MK2 in the arcades. Sure, it played a little different, but it doesn't...
As the game buckled under the weight of its own excessive hype. Oh, and if you weren't already sick of MK3 by the end of 1995, Acclaim's Mortal Friday campaign for the home release kept consumer awareness at a fever pitch throughout the...
I remember this, okay? And I will tell you, I was off of school that day, and I probably wore out the guy at Blockbuster. They opened up. I think they opened like 9 or 10 in the morning or something like that on Fridays. And I called. Hey, you guys got you got MK3 on the Genesis, the Super Nintendo? No, not yet. Okay. Like every hour. He's like, just call back. Okay. Every hour. Until like 2 o'clock. He's like, yeah, we got it. It's not ready yet. We got to package them up and put them in our sleeves, and put them in our sleeves and stuff. So, okay. So about a half hour later, I just rolled on up to the store. Like, my mom drove me over there. It was only like 3 minutes away, thankfully. But he was just getting things set. And yeah, I rented them both. I rented the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version.
The holiday season. By the way, it's worth noting that these home ports launched only 6 months after MK3's original arcade release.
He's correct.
This infuriated arcade owners,
No, it didn't.
who would naturally see a massive drop-off in MK3 cabinet
They knew that.
revenue as a result. Just as a point of comparison, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 hit consoles almost an entire year after their original arcade releases.
That's because...
In order to appease arcade operators, Midway quickly shipped out a free upgrade kit that transformed MK3 arcade cabinets into Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Okay, it wasn't... They didn't rush it out. I mean, the production was obviously rushed. Ultimate MK3 was in production before MK3 was released. They were already working on the game when MK3 came out. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry that we let the console games get published early. Here, have some ROM chips.
This version restored many of the characters that were cut from vanilla MK3, added some more interesting backgrounds, and attempted to fix the game's balance issues, to mixed results.
Yes, to very mixed results. Everybody else got, well, there were some buffs. Cabal did not get nerfed nearly enough. Sub-Zero got absolutely neutered. Cyrax somehow sucked more. Kano, Sonya, Smoke went up, as well as some others.
This upgrade shipped to arcades in November of 1995, making the home console versions of MK3 obsolete about a month after they hit store shelves. And that's the real tragedy of the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 3.
Why is that a tragedy of the PlayStation version? It wasn't the PlayStation version's fault. Leave the PlayStation version alone. It's better than Arcade Perfect.
It's a nearly flawless port of an arcade game that became a...
Nearly flawless with the load times. And Shangs suck. Smaller sprite sizes. Look at the heads-up display. Look how much real estate there is. Okay, look. They need to do some heads-up display work on my noggin, okay? I mean, look at this thing. My hairline's not going up, but it is getting thin. I mean, like, you could stick, like, a character portrait up there. Look at all that space. And they did that to make the characters look bigger on the TV screen.
Relevant almost immediately. Strangely, Midway never developed a PlayStation version of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, though ports
reasons.
were later released for the Sega Saturn and 16-bit consoles.
Which sucked.
The PS1 eventually got Mortal Kombat Trilogy,
Yes,
which is basically Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 with a bunch more characters, moves, and secrets.
No, I don't think so. But I cannot get off the better than perfect arcade port because there's so much stuff missing. There's no round announcements. There's no like music transition during finish him. It just plays the stage music until they fall over and die or you do a finisher. The round music doesn't start until Shao Kahn says fight. It's
Despite its initial success, MK3's inability to live up to its own hype lost Midway a large segment of its player base.
What? How? People were playing MK3. If they lost people from MK1 to MK2, they didn't come back to MK3. But I don't think people got lost from MK2 to MK3. At least, I mean, I'm sure some people did. Because other games were coming out. Killer Instinct, Super Street Fighter 2 came out around then, maybe. I can't remember. But I remember the arcades still being packed and people still crowding around the MK3 arcade machine. I remember being on vacation in California at the San Jose airport, waiting for our flight, going to an arcade, and playing against a kid that was playing Sindel, who was pretty good, okay? His buddies all crowded around. He came up and played me. I beat him around, and he got visibly upset, and his buddies were like, ooh. So yeah, people were still there. Now, he ended up beating me in the match, but I did take a round off of him, and his buddies were all hyped up over it. But this game was still, in the arcades, incredibly popular.
Both in arcades and at home. Mortal Kombat 4 was a flop, ending the franchise's arcade era in 1997.
All right, that's enough. So that is the PlayStation arcade dud being transformed. I'm sorry, an arcade dud transformed console gaming. I don't know how it did that other than make a better arcade port on a console. 32-bit CD, so good music and more space to load stuff up. So anyhow, that's really all I've got to say about this one. Hope you enjoyed the review of the review. And if it lands, great. If not, Daryl, you're off the hook. Otherwise, you're next.